The Venezuelan formula is simpler than the Nigerian formula. It's C plus I equals $1.5 trillion. Corruption plus ineptitude equals $1.5 trillion only in the last 15 years. Essentially, this money has been wasted, has been illegally transferred to foreign leaders who are friends of the Venezuelan government, or simply have been stolen by the government bureaucrats and their friends. And you might ask how such a thing happened to a country, a small country with only 30 million people. And the explanation is simple. In Venezuela, oil belongs to the state. And Venezuela has 90% of the foreign exchange coming into Venezuela is from oil. So instead of going into the nation, the oil income goes directly into the state. And in Venezuela, the state equals the government. And furthermore, in Venezuela, the government equals the president or the dictator. So you can see that the state in Venezuela has become a Tyrannosaurus Rex, while the nation has remained as a small chicken. And where has the money gone from this huge waste? 25 or maybe 30% of this money has gone into a policy of handouts. The government in Venezuela has maintained a policy of giving cash to the poor. Basically to give the poor in Venezuela the illusion that they are escaping poverty. In fact, it's like the old Chinese proverb. They are giving them a fish a day. They are not teaching them how to fish. Nowadays, after 15 years, the Venezuelan poor are as poor as ever, and the money is now running out. About 20% has gone directly into the pockets of the Venezuelan bureaucrats and their friends. You will find this money, if you can find this money, in the bank accounts in Andorra and Switzerland and Panama and such countries. 25 or maybe 25% of the money barely has gone into real investment into infrastructure, education, and health. And 20% has gone to foreign friends of the government, the Castro brothers, Lukashenko in Belarus. I mean, all of this collection of dictators that are politically similar in ideology to the Venezuelan government. 10% into weapons or useless equipment. We have bought in Venezuela, or the government has bought Chinese satellites, 2 of them, $400 billion per satellite. Now, the corruption in Venezuela has multiple phases. I can only give you 3 or 4 examples. One I have reported many times publicly. It has to do with the rental of a drilling barge, not from the owner of the barge, but from an intermediate company that is made up of friends of the government. And the rental is $700,000 per day. But what the intermediary gives the owner of the barge is only $350,000 per day. The other $350,000 per day is pocketed by this small intermediary. Incorporated, by the way, only 2 weeks before the contract was signed. To the right, you see Mr. Chavez and Mr. Castro, very good friends. Venezuela has been giving Cuba for the last 10 years about $5 billion in subsidized oil. And not only to Cuba, but also tangible amounts of subsidies to other countries like Nicaragua, Bolivia, Argentina, all of the friends of the government in Latin America. We have an exchange control for now 7 or 8 years, and multiple companies, ghost or paper companies, have been created to import goods. And by doing that, they get preferential dollars from the government. In fact, they do not import anything. They pocket the money, which are dollars very cheap. I mean, the cheapest dollars you can find. And in the black market, you go with these preferential dollars, which are bought at 6 bolivares per dollar, and you sell them at 400 bolivares per dollar. And you can imagine the amount of money you can get in a very simple transfer of this type. Now, this is not the worst. The worst is yet to come. As Venezuelan oil prices have declined and expenditures have not declined but keep expanding, the Venezuelan government has gone into a new type of business. They have gone into drug trafficking. And today, about 350 tons of cocaine per year go from Venezuela to the US and Europe. And then the trafficking is controlled by the government. It's not controlled by private cartels. One of the cartels, actually, is led by the number 2 man in Venezuela, the president of the National Assembly. And the other cartel, the rivals of the first one, is controlled by the Chavez family. So you can see that now the government is not only a petro-state, but it's also a narco-state. And finally, as a result of all this, Venezuelan society is an anomic society without the rule of law, without separation of powers. It's a country, unfortunately, our country is one in which anomy has overcome citizenship. By the way, it's the contrary of what is going on in other oil countries like Norway. Norway is the opposite. There is a nation, not simply a state. Thank you.